It was a slow, quiet afternoon, the kind where everything in the house feels frozen in time, where the only sounds are the rhythmic ticking of the clock and the occasional creak of the wooden floors beneath my feet. I had just finished my morning routine and was relishing the rare moment of solitude. No calls, no emails, no responsibilities demanding my immediate attention, just me, my thoughts, and the comforting silence of home. I leaned against the kitchen counter, letting my fingertips trace the cool marble surface as I stared out the window. The sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting soft golden lines on the walls. It felt peaceful, almost too peaceful. A sigh escaped my lips as I tilted my head, stretching my neck slightly. It had been a long week filled with little stresses that accumulated like dust, unnoticed until they were too much. I needed this break. Still lost in thought, I lazily reached for a coffee mug, feeling its smooth ceramic warmth between my hands. Taking a slow sip, I allowed my mind to drift. My cousin was home today, somewhere in the house, likely playing video games or scrolling through his phone. He had always been the quieter type, someone who kept to himself unless spoken to. We had a close relationship growing up, but as we got older, life naturally pulled us in different directions. Yet there was always this underlying comfort in knowing he was around, familiarity, a constant presence that never felt intrusive, just there. I exhaled softly and turned to the kitchen island, ready to clean up the mess I had left behind earlier. I set my mug down, bent over slightly, and reached to grab a fallen napkin from the floor. It was such a mundane action, something I wouldn't have even given a second thought to until I heard a sharp inhale behind me. I froze. My heartbeat suddenly felt heavier, my skin prickling with awareness. There was a moment of silence so thick I could almost hear the weight of it pressing down on us. Slowly I straightened up, my hand still gripping the napkin, as I turned my head slightly to see him standing there. He was staring, his eyes locked onto me, but the look in them was something I had never seen before. It wasn't the usual counselly glance, the casual acknowledgement of my presence. No, this was something else entirely, something deeper, something unreadable. For a moment neither of us spoke. The air between us felt charged, like a live wire sparking beneath the surface of our normalcy. "What?" I finally asked, my voice softer than I intended. He blinked as if snapping out of a trance and quickly shook his head. "Nothing," he muttered, his tone a little too hurried, a little too forced. He rubbed the back of his neck, avoiding my gaze, and turned away, leaving the kitchen almost as quickly as he had entered it. I stood there, still gripping the napkin, my mind replaying the moment over and over. There was something in his expression that unsettled me, that made my stomach twist with a strange sense of what curiosity, confusion. Shaking my head, I tried to push the thought away. It was nothing, a trick of my overactive imagination. He had just been lost in thought, just like I had been before he walked in. That had to be it. But even as I went about the rest of my afternoon, I couldn't shake the way he had looked at me, and more than that, I couldn't ignore the way it had made me feel. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I buried myself in tasks, laundry, cleaning, anything to keep my mind from straying back to that moment. It was ridiculous, really, one fleeting look, and I was acting like I had uncovered some hidden secret. But the problem was I had seen that look before, not from him, of course, but from men, from strangers, from people who weren't supposed to look at me that way. And now that expression was tied to my cousin. As the evening crept in, I found myself sitting on the couch, my laptop resting on my legs, as I scrolled mindlessly through social media. The TV was on, playing some show I wasn't really paying attention to. My thoughts kept drifting, looping back to the moment in the kitchen, trying to decipher what it meant. A soft creak on the stairs pulled me from my reverie. I looked up just in time to see him walk into the living room, his hands tucked into the pockets of his hoodie. He hesitated for a moment before sitting down on the opposite end of the couch, leaving a noticeable space between us. I tried to act normal. "Hey," I said, offering a small smile. Hey, he replied, his voice just as careful. A beat of silence stretched between us, neither of us knowing how to fill it. Finally, I closed my laptop and turned toward him. You okay? He nodded too quickly. Yeah, just tired. Liar. I didn't push it. Instead, I leaned back against the cushions, pulling a blanket over my legs, as I turned my attention back to the TV. Whatever tension had settled between us earlier still lingered, hovering like an unspoken truth neither of us wanted to address. Maybe it was better that way, but even as I tried to convince myself of that, I could feel his gaze on me again, and this time I didn't look away. The next morning I woke up with a strange heaviness in my chest. The air in the house felt different, like the walls were holding on to the tension from the night before. I tried to shake it off, forcing myself into my usual routine, brushing my hair, slipping into something comfortable, going downstairs for breakfast. He was already there, sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling through his phone, pretending like everything was normal. But the second our eyes met, I knew we both felt it, the lingering weight of what had happened. I hesitated for a second before walking past him, heading straight for the fridge. The silence between us wasn't unusual, but now it felt loaded, like every second was an unspoken challenge to address what neither of us wanted to say. Sleep okay? His voice came out, forced, casual. Yeah, I lied. You? He nodded, still not looking at me. Fine. I busied myself with making coffee, trying to ignore the way my hands trembled slightly as I poured the steaming liquid into a mug. I needed to focus on something, anything other than the fact that his eyes had been on me again. About yesterday, he started, and I felt my stomach clench. It was nothing right. I turned to face him, fingers tightening around my mug. He was watching me now, carefully, as if waiting for me to confirm it, to brush it off like it never happened.